Yes, you're gonna have people turn their backs, but it's time for us to keep it real. Just keep talking that real, bro. Do what you do. I know what you do, so keep doing that. Talk the real.
The HBI lads will see you now. See you now. See you now.
I don't want to cause no problems. I just want to live my life, but I keep on hearing about nonsense.
All right, and we're back. HBI Podcast, health, business, and in between. My name is Dr. Nathan Bridger. I am a chiropractor and strength and conditioning coach working out of North Fremantle Chiropractic in Perth, Western Australia. And I am joined by the boys. And not that, well, actually pretty good TV show on Stan. Or no, Prime. On Prime. Don't sue me. But I am joined by the team. First, starting in the bottom corner, a man that can't control his time zones. He's the master of escaping COVID. He is the osteopath of the team. Dr. Daniel Kirkbride, how are you this morning?
Yeah, not bad, mate.
It's still morning there, mate. Do you know what time it is?
He's Houdini, bro. He's Houdini.
I don't even know where I am, mate.
I think it's like we should also Dr. Daniel Kirkbride, a.k.a. Mr. Channel 9. The local celebrity. The man
Hollywood.
myth. I didn't honestly listen to it with the sound on, so I have no idea what was going on, but I assume good things were said. I was waiting for you to take your mask off when you got interviewed. I was like, don't do it.
He's like,
mate, I was so close.
sign up to my course, all right?
Sign up to his course about how to be a celebrity osteopath. All right, there it is. All right. And then joining me on the left bottom corner, this man is, I'm trying to do a Bruce Buffer accidentally here. I don't know why I was going to be. Oh, you do look a little Brazilian there, Mina. We'll go with it. All right.
I'll take it.
He is sorry, I lost that one. The My Body Clinic extraordinaire, Mr. Mina Garris, myotherapist. How are we?
I'm great. Good to be back and good to see all you boys again.
Yeah, mate, it is a pleasure being back in front of everybody. And of course, last but definitely not least, in my top corner, the man with the filthiest mullet in town. He's starting fires left, right, and centre on the internet at the moment. Physiotherapist, Ben Humphries. How are you?
I'm good, bro. I'm a good fire starter, that's for sure. But yeah, I think my mullet, I don't know if you boys can see it in all its fucking glory. It's hectic.
It's getting out of control, Benny.
No, it's almost as long as Nathan's beard.
I saw the old handsome swine put up a picture of it. I was like, the fact he allowed himself to do that, I have real questions for him, honestly.
That was filthy, wasn't it? All right, what are we talking about today? So today...
Well, we had a hot question today.
Short
Big
and sharp.
hot question from the man, the myth, who's just exited from stage left all of a sudden to run some business in the background, Mr. Mina Garris. Mina's been getting a lot of questions apparently about adjustments or spinal manipulative therapy and, essentially what it is, where it has use, where, when to refer for it, a bunch of other simple things. So we thought we'd run a little bit of, Q&A for spinal manipulative therapy today. Is that, I believe that's where we're heading. Everybody's on board. Dan looks very keen. Mate, I like how the head still is immaculate in front of the headphones. Does anyone else notice this?
He's a
For all
beautiful
those on the
man.
video podcast, you are missing out. Like, if you're not on, you got to get around
finished an
it.
interview with Channel 9 again and had another one.
Man, I feel like he's got
Let's not talk about hair, boys.
He's got that filter on where it always makes you look beautiful, right?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, is that Sky in the background? Do I see Sky just rolling from the back?
Just having a nap. There's not much room to escape in this apartment. So.
I was like, I just swear I saw a foot. Well, for all those on the video podcast, things are getting real. So, we've just introduced the idea that we're going to be chatting about spinal manipulative therapy adjustments today. Since you're leading this one off, do you want to start with a couple of quick Q&As and then we can get a bit deeper as we get going along?
A few cues.
Yeah, so a few questions that I've kind of been asked, and it's quite general questions, and I really wanted to get this advice from professionals such as yourself around a couple of good questions. When do I need an adjustment? And what if my muscles are really tight? Will the adjustment work? Is a really big one I've been getting. Second question is, I generally crack my neck a lot myself. Will that cause me to get arthritis in my neck if I keep doing it over a long period of time? What would be the difference between a chiro adjustment versus an osteo adjustment? And could these things potentially lead to any dangers?
There's a lot of questions there.
Damn, it's going hard. It's going hard.
Yeah.
Insane.
What was the first one?
I was like, "What? Did you put your hand up? You want to answer there, mate? Is that what's going on?" No. All right. I'll lead in on first one here. So, when to refer for an adjustment? I mean, listen. Again, that's going to be how long is a piece of string. But in my mind,
Correct.
I mean, it's when I work on it. It's my profession. It's one of our primary tools we use. You know, any kind of pain, dysfunction there's usually going to be a role that possibly spinal manipulative therapy could play, right? Again, this is the thing we always have to remember when it comes to seeing a health practitioner, that the primary reason you go to see someone is for an evaluation, not a treatment-specific modality. So you're not going for the fire cupping, you're not going for the adjustment, you're not going for the needling, you're going because that person has an expertise in figuring out what's going on. And then whatever the therapy is after is what they deem appropriate to help that, right? And like everything, there's a million different ways to help things.
Yeah.
So where I think particularly spinal manipulative therapy comes into play is joint injuries and, particularly spinal facet injuries, things like that, where the joint surface themselves perhaps have issues, and we can get a deeper sort of movement and deeper sort of help to an area that perhaps we couldn't get from more general sort of soft tissue work more externally.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Dan, you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, that's pretty well answered. I think similar to you, it's like, it's not really, I don't look at it in isolation. I think about it in more of like assessing someone overall and then figuring out which modality is going to be the best based off what's in front of me, and integrating it all into a more complete management plan rather than like isolating one thing. I don't think I'd ever really do one thing at a time. It would be more so looking at, okay, maybe I can use the adjustment for this short-term acute change in range of motion, especially when you're saying like facet joints, spinal stuff, and how can that work in well with, potentially other techniques like, cupping, needling, with the idea of, all this stuff is just having a short-term, neurophysiological effect of increasing range of motion, desensitizing, whatever you want to call it, essentially, so that we can get them into their gym or get them going through their exercises. So
yeah,
that's my view on it.
And that question's kind of coming from like a lot of clients are like, oh, if I knew this at the start, then I would have, seen this person. So as a client, uncertain of what they've got, how do they make an informed decision around, not kind of the treatment type, but, when would I need to see a chiro, for example, versus an osteo? A lot of people still get quite confused. So I think it's a really good point there that you say, you're not going there for the adjustment, you're going there for the assessment. And I think that's a really, really, really big takeaway for clients, because a lot of the time what you think it might be versus what you need are two completely different things. So I think you guys absolutely nailed that question. And I think that's something I'll be carrying forward to and speaking to clients about. So thank you, boys. That's really good.
And I'll just jump on the back end of that question as well about if your muscles are tight, can it work? Absolutely, because if you're well trained and you know what you're doing, you should be able to provide an adjustment to someone irrespective of muscle tension. Now, as the caveat to that, I, full disclosure, do a lot of soft tissue work as part of my treatment protocols, because I do find that makes an adjustment easier. If anything, that's just to make it more comfortable for the client, and at the same time more comfortable in my body, so I'm not having to use an undue amount of force to make something do what it needs to do. Now, there's definitely situations, acute facet syndromes, torticollis-like things, where I almost find that you need to almost avoid the soft tissue before doing it, because it can further aggravate an already locked up area. But they're quite unique cases, and they're very case specific. So in general, do you need soft tissue to get an adjustment? No. Is it going to hurt? Absolutely not. And I think that you're getting a secondary benefit anyway. So there are definitely groups of crew that just do, like within, I don't know about osteo, within Cairo, that just do manual adjustments. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. In the end of the day, I think this comes back to the first word in Ben's new business title, which is results. If you're getting the result, it's fine, right? If it takes a person 5 minutes or 100 minutes, as long as you're getting the result, you're getting the result, right? If they use adjustments, they use soft tissue, they don't touch you, and they just give you exercise work. If you're getting the tangible result, we're good to go. If you're not, then we need to have a hard discussion about what's actually going on.
Absolutely. I think touching on that even a bit deeper on the physiology and sort of anatomy and that sort of thing, Mina, you mentioned stuff about how will it influence soft tissue tonicity and all that sort of shit. At the end of the day, that's why I explain to my clients, I'm like, I always combine, as where appropriate, chiropractic treatment with the type of like myotherapy sort of remedial physio soft tissue work that we do, because at the end of the day, the spine houses a spinal cord, right? All messages travel through the central nervous system throughout to the peripheral nervous system. So therefore, if you're changing, reducing your subluxation, or whether you're changing the mechanics centrally, where the origin of these signals are coming from, these signals then obviously supply the muscular system, and they will dictate the tonicity of the musculoskeletal system. So therefore, if you're adjusting something centrally, it's going to have a flow-on effect to the structures that the nerve is supplying. So I find that, as Nate said, whether you do a bit of soft tissue work before, whether you don't do any at all, he said, there's obviously several variables involved there. But I find that the adjustment will, usually reduce the tonicity if it's done well of the muscle tissue, which will then, integrate very, very well with introducing rehab, and if you throw in more soft tissue work on top of that, it's just like, that's where the money is. I think the hybridization of, the hands-on manual therapy, soft tissue stuff, the cupping, electrodry needling, whatever, as well as combination with the adjustments on the spine, especially. So, and that's where I guess osteopaths almost, I believe, that's sort of their ground, the middle ground. They're trained to do all things quite well. And then it's up to, I guess, the practitioner as they develop professionally and personally where they want to head to with their specific qualifications, I guess.
Awesome. Love it. And I think it's pretty well-rounded answer. And it kind of answered the next question, which I get a lot of, who do I see at Cairo and Oscar, right? And I think, again, going back to the original answer from Nathan, is around, we all kind of have our in-depth ability to diagnose and see where you issue. And then the practitioner will then refer you if it's not within their scope, or if they feel you're going to get a better treatment as well. So I think that kind of answers that question. I think a really big question that gets asked is, well, what's that sound that we get through a manipulation? So can you guys kind of elaborate a little bit on that? Can you guys elaborate on what that sound is and what it does?
I might just jump in quickly as well. Just on the thing before about, just on the thing about in terms of like who do I see, Cairo versus osteo. I think, like Ben said, the way I see osteo is a pretty well-rounded, but I think it's almost to a detriment to a certain degree in terms of, I reckon when we come out of uni, we're a solid 6 out of 10 or 7 out of 10 at everything, but not really a master of anything, compared to the way I see Cairo. Like, I know just from, osteo and Cairo studied together at RMIT, and I would definitely feel more comfortable with a Cairo versus an osteo initially. But then I think when you start to, go down your own individual path and to get better at it, like I've definitely spent a lot of time there learning off people like Nathan and other Chiros who have helped me. But I think, like I'd say, Cairo is definitely generally would be the master of the adjustments, and osteo is probably a little bit coming in second. But I think it definitely comes down to individual practitioner rather than the overall industry.
I'll jump on that as well. Like, I think for myself now, I no longer, when I'm looking to refer a client, I'm not looking for necessarily a chiropractor. I'm looking for the right person. And just like, I often think sometimes the actual profession's irrelevant. It's just finding the right practitioner. So it's been a nice shift, to be honest. So coming back to, we'll come full circle back to Mina's question about what the noise is. So obviously most people still think it's bones being cracked, and I want to stop that right now and say that that is completely a myth.
That is why I want to misbuff that one.
We're literally just, what you're hearing is a gaseous exchange from a joint surface, right? So within every joint surface, there is a relative pressure, which allows a certain amount of motion and not too much motion. If you kind of think of like, as you reduce volume, you increase pressure. Thank you, Dan, for reminding me about the laws the other week. And so that limits certain ranges of motion, right? When we see dysfunction of a joint, we will often see limits in range of motion. What we're temporarily doing is basically gapping the joint surface, allowing an exchange of gas, which is the noise you hear, what we call a cavitation. And then we get a reduction in pressure, which allows, as one of the things that happens, an increase in range of motion.
Love it.
Perfect.
That was a good explanation.
Yeah, so it's a very, very common question. And I remember, I know as a kid, every single time I used to crack my knuckles, crack my fingers at home and go, oh, stop, you're going to get arthritis. So can we myth bust this one as well? Will it cause?
What's a myth-busted now?
No.
Yeah. Nah.
Short answer, no.
Now, like, I think one thing that your next question, I think, was about if I crack my neck all the time kind of thing. Now, this is something I often people tell me how they crack their own backs and they crack their own neck. Now, I've been doing this for the better part of a decade. I cannot adjust myself. And I just want to throw that out, like, I can make parts of my body go pop. Don't get me wrong. But I cannot adjust myself. So there's a big difference between well, the thing is like
specific adjustment.
Well, general, like when it's not even about specificity, right? It's about, it is to a point, because we know from research that you can only be so specific, right? Like what we think we're moving and what's moving is often two different things. But when we're moving and we're just cracking things ourselves, we're generally just picking on a singular area that's already probably has increased mobility. So it's easy to move. So we're probably not, and again, some of this is theoretical, we're not getting what we're looking for out of it. What we're probably getting is just quick changes in neurophysiology, which is making things feel dandy. And then moments later, what people tend to tell me is that used to feel great for a while. Now they have to do it more and more and more. And I have seen multiple cases, mostly in a couple of teenagers, but a couple of adults too, where they did it so often, it almost turned into a Tourette's tick, where they will look at you and like every 30 seconds, they'll be like tilting their neck like they're trying to crack it. And they have no idea that they actually do it. So listen, can it become, it's almost like crack, right? Don't get addicted to crack, as I like to say in the office, right? Because a lot of the time, this is one of the things that we didn't touch on before with the manipulation. A cavitation is not an indication that a manipulation was successful. There are times where we want to put force or movement through a joint, but we don't need a change in range of motion. So we're trying to get movement through there, but I don't need an increase in range. I'm not expecting a cavitation. I'm not looking for it. In fact, it's almost counterindicated for what I want. So, and there are people that are just very non-cavitary. Anyone who's adjusted my mid-back will know all about it, but I still get great response by having movement through the area. So we have to get, even as practitioners, need to get away from, getting addicted to the crack. But
absolutely,
back to the question, like definitely, general mobility and stuff like that. If your body's releasing, totally fine. But if you're just trying to gun for it all the time, you're probably not doing yourself a service.
I think a good point here is that obviously we all want short-term relief, right? But what I'm finding, especially the chiropractic with Maddie, who purely Matt at Thrive will just purely do the adjustments and that's it. And basically, even for the soft tissue work and stuff that we do, like the thing is we're all designed to live for a while, right? And obviously short-term relief is good because all that matters is here and now. But I find, especially with his, I guess, philosophies and the way he practices, it's moving things towards, full function and understanding that one adjustment is not going to change, a mild scoliosis, whatever it may be. So I find that it's, over time, it's the consistency and the frequency in which the chiropractic works really well for me. So over time, you might see shifts in scoliosis. You might see shifts in, you might see shifts in, the mechanics and the alignment of the spine. But it's just something that I think is achieved over a long period of time, and it's quite a consistent sort of treatment that you need to achieve those results.
Well, I think like this goes for any treatment, right? Like, or anything in life. Everything we do is usually a matter of us behaving our way into something.
Yeah.
And if we want an improvement, we have to behave our way back out. Now, certain things like jobs and all this can limit your ability on behavior, but the simple expectation needs to be that all treatment, all work is part of a plan for long-term results. Right. Obviously, we want to feel better, but if we want true results, we're going to have to work at things for a while.
Yeah. Perfect.
Now, the big question, I think, was question 4 there from Mr. Mina. Do you want to lead that one in?
Yeah, I think for me, I think you guys kind of just answered it anyway. It was just the difference between, who I'd see between a chiro or an osteo. But I think you guys answered that quite well.
There's one last one there that I think everybody always wants to ask. I'm going to, as I allude to it.
Are there any dangers?
Everybody, is it,
yes,
there
yes.
dangers, right? Everyone always wants to know, like, are you going to break my body in half? And
yes.
are you going to pull what is it, an Arnie on me and like touch my neck and I'm going to fall and die and have a
stroke,
have some kind of stroke thing going on here.
Yeah.
Dan, do you want to start this and I'll finish the party at the end here?
Yeah, sure. Sweet. So yeah, I think overall, there's plenty of research on it. Like it's overall a very safe process when it's assessed thoroughly. I think that's the biggest thing with any technique. If you don't do it, if it's not a match in terms of the technique and the person, then that's where you're going to run into trouble or potential trouble. So, manipulating any area. Are we talking about the neck or just in general manipulations?
Whole body.
Whole
body.
In general.
Yeah, so just general manipulations. I think the obvious ones are going to be obviously any sort of bony dysfunction. Someone that might have osteoporosis or severe osteoarthritis, things like that are really developed, and they're got a lower bone mineral density and stuff like that, where high amounts of force might not be the best option. But again, even then, it's a case by case scenario. The other ones to be thinking of will be, maybe really, really acute injury, trauma, fracture, some of those ones. Yep. But generally, obviously, with all these things, if you're screening effectively and have a good assessment process, take a good thorough case history, and err on the side of caution and safety when you're progressing. Maybe in the first session, you don't do the adjustment and you see how people respond to treatments and then go from there. You're going to be pretty safe. I think it's more so people get themselves in trouble when they just, when you hear about the really bad cases or people getting hurt, it's obviously they haven't gone through that process, or maybe it's a freak incident where shit happens essentially. But in most scenarios, if you're following those prompts and doing the right things and having duty of care, then it's generally pretty safe.
Perfect. Yeah,
absolutely. Like with any intervention, there's going to be risks, right? We have to be completely upfront with that. You take Panadol over the counter, and we know that approximately 1,000 to 2,000 people a year die from that, right? So everything has a risk. Most of risks when it comes to manual therapy or spinal manipulative therapy as an inclusion in that is general muscular soreness 24 to 48 hours after, right? So that is our 99%. If we are going to pull sore, that's what we're going to get. Obviously, due to the nature of the movements, there are some other risks that come with it. Like Dan alluded to, usually it's because the person has an underlying deficiency. Some of that can be screened out, some of it cannot. So, I've had seen incidences in case studies where someone, cracked a rib or cracked a vertebra, but someone had an underlying tumor in that couldn't be screened out. And in some ways, it happening allowed them to find it. There was no long-term repercussions, right? The final one I'm just real quickly through here is the one that everyone brings up, is the risk of stroke with the neck adjustments. Our research is pretty clear these days that says that it almost is a non-causative factor. What they do think has happened in the past is you're getting people with a stroke in process, and people often don't realize that strokes aren't as aggressive as they often seem to be. And they have, one of the major symptoms is neck pain and headaches, and they usually present to a chiro osteo GP, right? They did a massive study in Canada many years back comparing all of the presentations of this stroke. They compared them to GP offices and chiro offices, and they found the same rate of them. And the chiros aren't doing manipulation work. So it's fairly safe. We're fairly happy. We're pretty confident. But again, if your practitioner is doing the right thing and screening things out, or if you just don't feel comfortable with having the neck manipulation, which I have a number of clients that just don't like it, we just don't use it. Million and one ways to do things, right? So
perfect.
Moral of the story, super safe. It's a great option for different cases, but it's a case-by-case basis.
Awesome. That's really good, bro.
I like that. Rapid fire today. Yeah. Hard, rapid fire. It's a pleasure to be back in front with the lads. Honestly, I've missed it. Yeah, it's good. I hope we can keep the momentum back and rolling so we can get this rocking. We'll just have to make sure we sort out old Danny's clocks over there. But, mate, I'll see you on the call then at 4 o'clock, will I, Dan? Where's you figured that one out for the Savo? You're never going to live this down, mate. Never living it down. He's freaking out already. All right, gents, it's been a pleasure. Thank you as always, everybody. Make sure you are subscribed. And as always, if you got some value today, pay the cost, take a screenshot, throw it on the gram, tag us in. We love hearing from you. And otherwise, boys and girls, we will see you next week.
See you soon.
Thanks, guys.
See you, boys.
See you, lads.